Welcome to Revenge with Arion, where betrayal meets justice, and every story reminds us that karma never forgets. Tonight's story is about a husband who devoted 12 years to his wife only to be told he was holding her back from her dreams. But when he set her free, she never expected the price of her so-called freedom. So sit back, relax, and let me take you into this tale of betrayal, consequences, and the sweetest revenge. Tonight's tale begins quietly like many do it: love, commitment, and the promise of forever. But as you'll soon see, even the strongest bonds can unravel when selfishness takes the wheel. I'm Mark, and for 12 years I believed I had built the life my wife always wanted. Emma and I met in college. She was lively, ambitious, always talking about big dreams of traveling, writing, and starting her own boutique business one day. I admired her energy, but she was also practical enough to know that chasing those dreams would take time. Meanwhile, I was the steady one, the one who studied finance, worked long hours, and built a stable home for us. After graduation, marriage felt like the natural step. We didn't have much, but together we created a home filled with laughter, quiet nights, and the occasional adventure when money allowed. Over the years, I worked my way up in my career while Emma mostly stayed home, later picking up a part-time job here and there. We had no kids by choice and, instead, poured our time into building what we thought was our shared future. But somewhere along the way, things changed. At first it was small comments. Emma would look at old photos from our college days and sigh. She'd say things like, "Remember when I wanted to live in Paris for a year? I never got to do that." Or she'd mention friends who had started businesses, adding, "If I hadn't been tied down, maybe I'd have done something like that too." I thought she was just reminiscing. Everyone wonders about what-ifs now and then, right? I brushed it off, reassured her, told her we could still chase those things together one day, but her comments grew sharper one night. After a long day at work, I walked through the door expecting a warm meal and maybe some conversation. Instead, Emma looked me dead in the eyes and said, "Mark, I feel like you've been holding me back. For 12 years, I've lived in your shadow, while you've built your career. What about me? What about my dreams?" The words stung. Holding her back. I thought I'd been supporting her, providing for her, making it possible for us to live comfortably. My success was supposed to be our success. But Emma didn't see it that way. The more we talked, the worse it became. She claimed I never encouraged her, never pushed her to leap into the unknown. She even accused me of being selfish for wanting stability, as if providing a home and financial security was some kind of chain I had shackled her with. It wasn't just words anymore. Emma began to distance herself. She stayed out late with friends I barely knew. She'd canceled dinner plans last minute, saying she had networking events or workshops to attend. I tried to be supportive, but deep down, resentment was starting to build. The breaking point came during our 12th anniversary dinner. I had planned a beautiful evening at a rooftop restaurant, flowers waiting at the table, a heartfelt speech about our journey together. But Emma barely smiled. Halfway through the evening, she looked at me, her voice steady but cold, and said, "Mark, I don't think this is what I want anymore. I feel trapped. I feel like I've wasted the best years of my life being your wife instead of being myself." Her words cut deeper than any blade. That night, I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I didn't raise my voice. Instead, something inside me clicked. If she truly believed I was holding her back, maybe it was time to show her what freedom really looked like, but not in the way she expected. Because in that quiet, painful moment, the seed of revenge was planted. And soon, Emma would learn that freedom sometimes comes with a price. After that painful anniversary dinner, our marriage slipped into something like a cold truce. Emma became even more distant. She stopped waiting for me to come home from work. She filled her evenings with meetings, workshops, and girls' nights. I'd come home to an empty house more often than not, and when she was home, the warmth was gone. Conversations turned into complaints. She criticized my career, my routines, even my friends. If I suggested we spend time together, she would sigh and say things like, "Mark, you just don't get it. I'm not that woman anymore. I need space. I need to find myself." Find herself. Those words echoed in my head. For 12 years I thought we had built a life together. Now she acted as if all of it was a mistake, as if I had been some kind of anchor dragging her down. The irony. I had always encouraged her to pursue hobbies, passions, and side projects. But Emma never followed through. She would start something: photography, baking, even painting, and give up within weeks. Now, suddenly, she wanted to rewrite history and blame me for her lack of ambition. I didn't argue. Instead, I listened, patiently, quietly, and the more she revealed, the more pieces of my plan began falling into place. One night she came home late, smelling faintly of wine. She dropped her purse on the counter and announced, "I signed up for a business retreat. It's expensive, but it's an investment in my future. I'll finally get to connect with people who understand me." She said it with a gleam in her eyes. The same gleam she once reserved for me. I nodded, masking the storm building inside. "That sounds good, Emma. You should go. Chase those dreams." Her eyes widened a little, surprised that I wasn't pushing back. She probably expected resistance. But no, I wanted her to believe I was giving her exactly what she wanted, because the truth was, I had already started preparing. Over the following weeks, I quietly adjusted our finances. I created separate accounts, shifted investments, and made sure my savings were secure. Emma had always been careless with money, often swiping cards without a thought. But soon, she would learn that freedom also meant standing on her own 2 feet financially. But at the same time, I started documenting everything. Her absences, her spending, even the late-night texts she thought I didn't notice flashing on her phone. Emma wasn't just chasing dreams, she was testing boundaries, and I wanted to be ready for whatever storm she brought my way. Still, on the surface, I played the supportive husband. I told her to enjoy her retreat, to take the time she needed. I even gave her extra money for the trip. She looked at me with suspicion, as though my calmness unsettled her, but she didn't question it too much. The night before she left, Emma packed her suitcase with an excitement I hadn't seen in years. She hummed softly as she folded dresses and shoes, as though she were already living a different life. I leaned against the doorframe, watching silently. "Mark," she said finally, glancing over her shoulder, "I hope you understand, this isn't about us. It's about me finally becoming who I'm meant to be." I forced a smile. "I understand, Emma, I really do." Inside, I was thinking, if you believe I've been holding you back, just wait until you see what it feels like when I let go completely. When she left for the retreat, I didn't feel sadness. I felt clarity. The woman I had loved for over a decade was gone, replaced by someone unrecognizable. And if she wanted a new life, I would gladly give it to her, but not without a lesson she'd never forget. The morning she left, I drove her to the airport. She kissed me on the cheek like we were still the loving couple we used to be, but there was no warmth in it, just habit. As she walked away, rolling her suitcase behind her, I felt a strange mix of emotions: relief, sadness, and above all, determination. Emma's absence gave me something I hadn't had in months. Space to think, plan, and act without her constant criticism or suspicious glances. The first thing I did was meet with a lawyer, not to file for divorce at least not yet. No. This was about preparation. I wanted to understand my rights, the division of assets, and what would happen if Emma decided to leave for good. My lawyer, a sharp woman named Claire, was quick to point out the importance of documentation. She advised me to gather evidence of Emma's spending habits, her late nights, and her communications. Judges don't like it when one spouse abandons the other emotionally or financially, Claire explained. If she thinks she can walk away with half while blaming you for everything, she's in for a surprise if you play this right, and that's exactly what I intended to do while Emma was off at her retreat. I began combing through our financial records. Credit card statements showed charges at fancy restaurants I'd never visited, boutique clothing stores, and hotels during weekends. I thought she was at a friend's place. My suspicions about late-night texts were confirmed. Emma wasn't just chasing dreams, she was chasing someone else. But instead of confronting her immediately, I tucked that knowledge away like a sharp knife waiting to be used. Timing was everything. Meanwhile, Emma's retreat was everything she wanted it to be, or so she thought. She called me a few times, always sounding giddy. She spoke about motivational speakers, workshops on unlocking your inner potential, and networking mixers where she met amazing people. But what struck me most was how she never asked about me. Not once. It was as if I didn't exist. Her new life didn't have room for the man who had stood beside her for 12 years. One evening, she called and casually dropped a bombshell. "Mark," she said, her voice light, almost rehearsed. "I've been thinking, maybe when I get back I'll take some time away. A separation, just to figure things out, you know. I don't want to hurt you, but I need to see who I am without you." I gripped the phone tightly, my knuckles whitening. I wanted to lash out, to tell her about the receipts, the late nights, the betrayal, but instead, I kept my tone calm. "If that's what you need, Emma, then I support you," I said evenly. There was silence on the other end. She hadn't expected me to agree so easily. "You do." She stammered. "Yes. You've always said I was holding you back. If this is what it takes for you to feel free, then I'll step aside. What I didn't tell her was that I was already pulling the strings to make sure her newfound freedom came with consequences. When Emma returned from the retreat, she was glowing. She wore new clothes, carried herself with confidence, and barely acknowledged the home I had kept steady for us. She looked around like it was a cage instead of a shelter. "Mark," she said, setting her suitcase down, "I think I'm ready to try living separately. Just for a while. I'll find a place, maybe with some of the friends I made at the retreat." I smiled faintly. "Of course, Emma, you do what you need to do." Her surprise was evident. She had expected me to fight, beg, or collapse into despair. Instead, I was calm, collected, almost supportive. But what she didn't know was that while she was chasing her dreams, I was already one step ahead. I had secured my finances, gathered my evidence, and laid the foundation for her fall. She thought she was taking control of her life. In reality, she was walking straight into the web I had spun. Within weeks of her return, Emma moved out. She found a small apartment with one of the friends she had met at the retreat. She carried her things out of the house with an air of triumph, as if she were finally conquering some invisible enemy. I helped her load the boxes into her car, calm and polite. "Thank you for understanding," she said, pausing to look at me. "I know this isn't easy for you." I smiled faintly. "It's what you want, Emma. You deserve to find yourself." Inside, I was already counting down the days until her illusion would come crashing down. At first, Emma's new life looked glamorous. Social media posts of brunches, photos with her new business friends, and long captions about embracing freedom flooded her accounts. I watched quietly, documenting everything, but behind the curated pictures, reality was much harsher. Living independently wasn't as easy as she imagined. Rent, utilities, groceries, things she had taken for granted while I managed them quickly piled up. Her part-time job barely covered her half of the bills, and her so-called business ideas drained more money than they made. Within 3 months, Emma called me. "Mark, can we talk?" she asked, her voice softer than it had been in months. "Of course," I said, keeping my tone neutral. We met at a coffee shop, where she arrived looking tired. Her glow dimmed. She fidgeted with her cup before admitting, "This is harder than I thought. I didn't realize how expensive everything is. I thought I'd have more support from my friends, but they're busy with their own lives." I nodded, sipping my drink. "Freedom comes with responsibility, Emma. It's not easy." She looked at me then, perhaps expecting me to offer help, money, or a way back home, but I gave her nothing, only understanding eyes and silence. The cracks deepened. Soon after, the friend she lived with grew tired of Emma's unpaid share of the bills. Arguments broke out, and Emma found herself forced to move into a smaller place, this time, alone. Her social media posts became less frequent, the captions shorter, less confident. The vibrant woman who claimed she was finally free was fading back into someone fragile, uncertain. And then, the final blow. The man she had been secretly seeing, the one behind those late-night texts and hotel charges, suddenly disappeared from her life. I don't know if he grew bored, found someone else, or simply realized she wasn't the carefree dreamer she pretended to be. All I know is that one day, his presence vanished completely. That was when Emma truly began to unravel. She called me late one night, her voice trembling. "Mark, I don't know what I'm doing. Everything's falling apart. I thought this was what I wanted." But her words broke off in a sob. I listened quietly, letting her pour out her regrets. But instead of rushing to her side, I simply said, "You wanted to be free, Emma, and I gave you that. Now, it's up to you to live with it." There was a long silence on the line, followed by a whisper, "I miss you." Those words might have broken me once, but not anymore. I wasn't the same man who had been blindsided at our anniversary dinner. I was stronger now, colder, and finally in control. Because the truth was, I had already moved on in ways she couldn't imagine. My career had flourished without the constant drain of her complaints. My savings and investments were secure, untouched by her reckless spending. And with the evidence I had gathered, I knew that if she ever tried to crawl back and demand more, the courts would see through her story. Emma had asked for freedom, and I had set her free, but she hadn't expected freedom to feel like loneliness, failure, and regret. And now, as she sat in the ruins of her choices, she was beginning to realize the price of throwing away 12 years of stability and love. Emma's late-night call still echoed in my mind. "I miss you," but the truth, I didn't miss her. Not anymore. I had spent months healing, focusing on myself, and preparing for this very moment. After that call, Emma started reaching out more often. Little texts here and there, "How are you?" Or, I was just thinking about you. The same woman who had once told me I was holding her back was now trying to pull me closer again. I didn't ignore her. No, I responded with polite, distant words, just enough to keep her hoping, to let her believe maybe, just maybe, I'd take her back, but I knew better. You see, I had already been working quietly with my lawyer. All the evidence I'd collected, her affair, her financial recklessness, her lies, was carefully filed away. My plan wasn't just to move on. My plan was to make sure she couldn't drag me down ever again. When Emma finally asked to meet in person, I agreed. She showed up looking worn, older than her years, a shell of the confident woman who once stood over me at dinner declaring her independence. Mark, she began, tears already pooling in her eyes. I made a mistake. I thought I needed space, but I need you. Can we try again? For a moment, I let the silence hang heavy between us. Then I leaned forward. You asked me to set you free, and I did. But freedom comes with consequences. Do you remember what you told me that night? That I was holding you back? She nodded weakly, staring at the table. Well, look around. Nothing's holding you back now. You got exactly what you wanted. Her tears spilled over, but I didn't flinch. I pulled out a folder and slid it across the table. Inside were the divorce papers already drawn up, neat and final dot. Her eyes widened. Mark, no. Please. Yes, Emma, I said calmly. This marriage is over. You left long before you ever moved out. I'm just finishing what you started. She looked through the papers, her face draining of color as she realized the details. My lawyer had ensured everything was airtight. The evidence of her affair secured me the majority of assets. Her reckless spending and financial instability left her with very little to claim. For once, she couldn't twist the story in her favor. This isn't fair, she whispered. No, Emma, I replied. It's justice. You walked away from 12 years of love and stability, and you thought I'd be waiting here with open arms when it all fell apart. But I won't be your safety net. Not anymore. Her sobs grew louder, but I stood, calm and collected. You wanted freedom, I said one last time. Now you have it. For good. And with that, I left her sitting in that cafe alone, broken and powerless. And the months that followed, my life only grew brighter. My career advanced. I reconnected with old friends, and I began building a future that no longer carried the weight of Emma's constant complaints. Meanwhile, she drifted into obscurity, struggling to maintain jobs, moving from one small apartment to another, living the harsh reality of the independence she once craved. I didn't gloat publicly. I didn't need to. The silence, the distance, the fact that I was thriving while she was sinking, that was revenge enough, because sometimes the sweetest revenge isn't about shouting victory. It's about quietly moving on, stronger than ever, while the one who betrayed you drowns in the consequences of their own choices. Final payoff. Emma thought she was breaking free, but in the end, she freed me. Free from her lies, her resentment, her blame. And that freedom, my freedom, was the sweetest justice of all. And that, my friends, is where our story ends. 12 years of marriage, undone by selfishness and betrayal, and answered with patience, strength, and calculated revenge. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe for more tales where karma always finds its way home. And that brings us to the end of today's story. What do you think? Did justice find its way home? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this tale of betrayal and revenge, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss the next story. This is Revenge with Arion, where every ending reminds us, karma always arrives, right on time. Until next time, stay strong, stay sharp, and remember, betrayal never goes unpunished.